Okay, serious question. Have you ever bought like a beautiful head of lettuce full of good intentions, right? Only to find it maybe a week later looking all sad and kind of slimy in the back of the fridge?
Oh, definitely. The leafy monument to good intention was gone the day.
Exactly. Well, welcome everyone to the deep dive. This is where we take all that information swirling around out there, stuff you're probably already seeing, and we try to pull out the bits that are actually useful and hopefully interesting too.
And today, we're diving into a whole bunch of consumer-focused news and some really good insights. It's all been pulled together by the news aggregator podcast Consumers.app. That's from yesterday, May 26, 2025. And we're also leaning on analysis from consumers' research.
Think of us as your shortcut, maybe, helping you navigate the daily flood of information. We'll point out what we think really matters for you as a consumer.
Right. Our mission today is pretty clear. We want to give you the key takeaways on a few different topics. We're not trying to overwhelm you.
No, definitely not. We'll touch on why throwing away food is, kind of perplexing when you think about it.
And the surprising ways even healthy eating can trip you up.
Yeah, that one sounds interesting. And also the whole journey of your coffee, like from the farm onwards.
And we'll get into retirement funds, especially what you should really think about when you change jobs.
So the idea is you walk away feeling informed, kind of in the loop, but without that too much information headache. Sound good?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, let's jump in. First up, that thing we started with, perfectly good food ending up in the trash. WCPO9 News had a headline that honestly just nails it. Food waste is a really dumb problem.
It really is hard to argue with that, especially when you see the numbers. Globally, we're talking about a third of all food produced just becoming waste.
A third. That's huge.
It's mind-boggling. That adds up to 931 million tons every year.
Wow.
Which breaks down to about 121 kilograms for every single person on the planet annually.
121 kilos. I can't even picture that. It makes you realize even small things we do at home, like planning meals a bit better, could actually add up.
Exactly. Those individual efforts really can make a collective difference. And it's not just about the wasted food itself. The environmental impact is massive.
Right. It's not just filling up landfills, is it?
Not at all. All that waste generates something like 3.3 billion tons of CO2 equivalent emissions every single year.
Billion with a B.
With a B, yeah. And think about the resources that went into producing that food in the first place. The land, the water, plus the impact on biodiversity in those farming areas. So food waste, it's a major player in climate change and, using up our natural resources way too fast.
So it's this big environmental issue kind of hiding in plain sight in our kitchens. Are people doing anything innovative about it, like tackling this dumb problem?
Yeah, definitely. And Consumers Research pointed out a great local example from Cincinnati. It's called Last Mile Food Rescue. What they do is collect surplus food, perfectly good food, from big events. Think like Taste of Cincinnati, where there might be loads left over.
Right, all those samples.
Exactly. Instead of it getting thrown out, they redistribute it to people who need it in the community.
That just makes so much sense.
It really does. It stops edible food going to landfill, plus it helps with food insecurity right there locally. And what's interesting is this fits perfectly with international guidelines.
How so?
Well, the top priority globally is to prevent waste in the first place. But if you can't prevent it, the very next best thing is donating that surplus food for people to eat.
Stop it being made or get it to people. Common sense, really.
What if it can't be donated, though? Like if it's not quite fit for humans anymore?
Good question. There's a hierarchy for that, too. So after prevention and donation, the next best options are things like using it for animal feed.
Okay.
Then after that, you look at recycling the nutrients or energy, think composting, or something called anaerobic digestion, which can create biogas.
Right. Landfill is absolutely the last resort. Because, when food rots in landfill, it releases methane, which is a really potent greenhouse gas.
Got it. So there's a whole preferred order.
Exactly. And this whole approach ties directly into the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, specifically Target 12.3, which aims to have global food waste per person by 2030.
Wow. So those local projects are actually part of a much bigger global push.
Precisely. They all contribute.
That's actually quite encouraging. Okay, let's shift gears a bit.
Yeah.
We've talked about what not to waste. Now, let's talk about something that sounds, almost contradictory. The potential downsides of trying to eat too healthy. The Telegraph India had this piece. The hidden pitfalls of healthy eating. What experts want you to know. Hidden pitfalls. of eating healthy.
Yeah, it does sound a bit strange, doesn't it? But the point is, even with foods we think of as healthy, you can overdo it.
How?
Well, you could end up with nutrient imbalances or digestive issues, and surprisingly, maybe even increase your risk for certain chronic conditions.
Like what?
For example, if you consume way too much calcium, maybe from supplements or certain foods, it could contribute to kidney stones if you're prone to them.
Okay.
Or taking massive doses of certain vitamin supplements. That can lead to something called hypervitaminosis, which is basically toxic levels of vitamins in your system.
Right. So too much of a good thing isn't always a good thing.
Exactly. Moderation, variety, they're still really key, even with healthy foods.
So maybe my plan for an all-kale smoothie diet needs rethinking.
Tickle slightly.
Probably.
Wise, no. Noted. Did the article mention more serious stuff too, like long-term health?
It did. There was mention of a 2025 study that explored the links between someone's nutritional status, these things called inflammatory biomarkers.
Okay, what are those?
They're basically signals in your body that show levels of inflammation. And inflammation is linked to a lot of diseases, including cancer.
Right.
So this study found diets high in anti-inflammatory stuff, like fiber, vitamin C, vitamin E, were linked to lower inflammation levels and a lower cancer risk.
Makes sense. But diets high in pro-inflammatory foods like processed meats, refined grains, that sort of thing, were correlated with higher cancer rates. It really shows how much our food choices matter for long-term health.
It really does. It's not just about the label healthy, it's about the actual quality and type of food. And sometimes our relationship with food itself can become an issue.
Yeah, that came up too. Another 2025 study, this one from Mumbai, suggested that over 11% of young adults were showing signs of what researchers call food addiction.
Wow, 11%.
Yeah, and unhealthy eating habits significantly raise that risk. The researchers felt that targeted nutrition help could be really important, especially given the known links between eating patterns and, mental well-being.
That's quite sobering, thinking that something as basic as eating could become addictive for some people. The headline mentioned pitfalls experts want us to know about. Were any specific popular diets called out?
They were, yeah. Diets like paleo and Atkins got a mention. The general advice from scientific reviews seems to be caution with these more restrictive diets.
Why is that?
Well, take paleo, for example. It focuses on whole foods, which is good, but you might struggle to get enough calcium, which you need for your bones.
Oh.
And Atkins, being high in protein and fat, could mean you end up eating more saturated fat than is ideal, especially for heart health long term.
So jumping onto a trendy diet might not be the best idea without checking it out properly.
Pretty much. The consensus is if you're thinking about a big dietary change, it's really best to get some personalized advice, maybe from a doctor or a registered dietitian. That's the safest, most effective way.
Right. A balanced, informed approach, not just following the latest fad. That seems like the real recipe for healthy eating.
Well put.
Okay, let's switch tracks completely. Something many of us need to get the day started. Coffee. Business Daily Africa had an interesting take. Empower everyone in coffee supply chain for true sustainability. It sounds like sustainability for coffee is more than just how it's grown.
Oh, absolutely. When we talk about sustainability in coffee, it covers everything. It's the environmental side, sure, but also the social and economic impacts at every single step.
Every step.
Yeah, from how the beans are sourced, is it ethical, through to responsible distribution, fair wages, and conditions for all the workers involved, optimizing the logistics to cut down on emissions, even managing the waste created along the way. It's about creating a system that works long-term for everyone and the planet.
So that cup of coffee has quite a journey, and making sure that whole journey is responsible is key. Where can farmers themselves see real improvements, both in their income and sustainability?
Well, there was a fascinating study from 2025 out of Sultan Kudarat in the Philippines. It looked at smallholder coffee farmers.
Okay.
And it found they could actually boost their profits and operate more sustainably by selling dried coffee cherries, that's the whole fruit, after picking rather than processing them into green beans themselves.
Really? Why is that?
Mostly because it lowers their processing costs. And, maybe surprisingly, they could often get better prices for the dried cherries in certain markets. The study even suggested that farmers who sell strategically, maybe through local associations and other channels, could do even better. It's a model that could potentially be adapted elsewhere.
That's interesting. Lower costs, better returns for the farmers. It seems like a win-win. But the headline mentioned empowering everyone. Are there big challenges facing the whole chain? It mentioned coffee leaf rust.
Yes, coffee leaf rust. That's a huge problem. It's a fungal disease, and it's devastating.
Yeah.
It drastically cuts down how many coffee cherries a plant produces, and it hurts the quality of the beans, too.
That sounds serious.
It is.
Yeah.
There's been some complex modeling done looking at both how the disease spreads and the economic hit to farmers, particularly in places like Colombia.
And what did that show?
It showed that without really effective ways to manage the rest, it's almost impossible for farmers to stay profitable. Even with good management, the profit margins can be incredibly thin. It's a major threat to the economic stability and just the basic sustainability of coffee farming.
Wow. So farmers are constantly battling these natural threats.
Yeah.
Is technology helping at all to make the supply chain maybe more resilient or sustainable?
Yes, technology is definitely playing a bigger role. AI, artificial intelligence, is being used more and more.
AI in coffee. How?
Well, it can analyze logistics, figure out the most efficient transport routes to save fuel, monitor resource use water, energy on farms and processing plants.
Okay.
Basically, it helps companies spot where they can reduce their environmental impact. We're seeing these kinds of tools being developed, for instance, in the U.S., and they could definitely be adapted to help make the coffee sector more sustainable.
AI optimizing coffee routes. Amazing. What about the packaging? All those coffee bags and pods must add up.
Oh, absolutely. Packaging is a massive piece of the puzzle, especially with the plastic pollution being such a focus.
Right.
So innovation here is crucial. We're seeing a definite trend now towards biodegradable or recyclable packaging options from coffee companies.
Is that driven by companies or consumers?
Bit of both, I think. It tackles the environmental problem, sure, but it also meets growing consumer demand for products that are environmentally responsible. It can actually be a competitive advantage now.
Yeah, you definitely see that more. People checking the packaging. Okay, let's move on to something that, eventually affects almost everyone.
Yeah.
Retirement planning. Investopedia had this headline that definitely grabbed my attention. Got a new job. Avoid this action that can cost you retirement money.
No.
I suspect I know what this might be.
Chuckles. You're probably thinking about what to do with your old 401k when you switch jobs.
Exactly. That moment.
Yeah. And you generally have, 4 main choices. You can sometimes leave it in the old plan if the balance is high enough. You can roll it into your new job's 401k. You can roll it over into an IRA, an individual retirement account.
Well.
Or the tempting one. You can just cash it out.
Right. Take the money now.
And that's the one Investopedia is warning against. Cashing out is almost always the worst option for your long-term retirement savings.
It feels tempting, though, doesn't it? Maybe you have moving costs or just want the cash. What's the actual cost of doing that?
Well, analyses suggest that for the average worker, cashing out that 401k could cost them around $18,000 in potential retirement savings by the time they actually retire.
$18,000. How?
Several hits. First, the money you get is taxed immediately, federal income tax, maybe state tax too.
Yeah.
Second, if you're under 59 and a half, you'll usually get hit with a 10% early withdrawal penalty on top of the tax.
Ouch.
But maybe the biggest hit is invisible. You lose all the potential growth that money could have generated through compound interest over all those years until you retire.
Right. That $18,000 lost isn't just $18,000. It's all the growth it could have had. Definitely seems like a costly mistake.
It really can be.
Okay, sticking with retirement, another headline, this one from AOL. Is delaying retirement at 70 over a 4% withdrawal rule smart? Let's unpack that. First, the 4% rule. What is that exactly?
The 4% rule is kind of a classic rule of thumb in retirement planning. It basically suggests that you can safely withdraw 4% of your total retirement savings portfolio in your first year of retirement.
Right.
And then each year after that, you adjust that dollar amount for inflation. The theory is if you stick to that, there's a very high chance your money will last for at least 30 years.
So it's a guideline for sustainable spending in retirement.
Exactly. It's a benchmark people use to figure out if they have enough saved and how much they can afford to spend each year.
Got it. But the headline asks about delaying retirement past 70, specifically in relation to that rule. What are the pros and cons of working longer beyond the usual retirement age?
Right. Delaying past 70 definitely has potential upsides.
Yeah.
For one, your Social Security benefits will typically be higher the longer you delay claiming them, up to age 70. You might also keep employer health insurance longer, which can be a big cost saving. And, of course, you have more years to save and let your investments potentially grow.
Makes sense. What are the downsides then?
Well, the main one is you might have less time to actually enjoy retirement while you're still healthy and active. There's also the risk that your health could decline unexpectedly, maybe forcing you to stop working anyway.
Right. You can't guarantee you'll be able to work.
Exactly. Recent research really stresses that deciding when to retire is super personal. It depends so much on individual circumstances.
It really sounds like there's no single right answer. If someone is thinking about working into their 70s, what are the key things they should really consider?
Number one is probably health. Your current health and realistic expectations about your longevity.
Yeah.
Then, obviously, your financial situation. Are your savings on track? How sustainable would your withdrawal rate be? Are you prepared for market ups and downs? Personal goals are huge too. What do you actually want to do in retirement? Does working longer fit with that? And finally, you need to keep an eye on external factors, like potential changes to Social Security or healthcare policies.
Wow. Lots to weigh up. It's a really complex decision.
It absolutely is. Needs careful thought and planning.
Definitely not a one-size-fits-all situation. Okay, let's shift to our final topic for today, which is quite different again. Fat loss. Insider on MSN.com featured this story. A busy doctor says he lost almost half his body fat in 3 months with small changes to his routine. Half his body fat in 3 months. That sounds dramatic. Yeah, headlines like that are designed to grab attention, aren't they? But the underlying idea that consistent small changes can lead to significant results is actually very sound.
Okay, so maybe not literally half the fat for everyone, but the principle holds.
Exactly. Making small, sustainable adjustments to how you eat and move and sticking with them creates a consistent calorie deficit over time. That's the fundamental key to fat loss.
Right, calories in versus calories out. Precisely. And these small changes can also gradually boost your metabolism, help you build or maintain muscle, and optimize your body's ability to use fat for energy. The beauty is, it doesn't require some massive, unsustainable life overhaul.
So it's about building habits you can actually live with, rather than some extreme crash diet or exercise plan.
That's the idea. It's about sustainability. And the article mentions something specific, short bursts of strength training.
Yeah, how does that fit in?
Well, even short sessions of high-intensity strength training can be really effective for building muscle. And muscle tissue burns more calories at rest than fat tissue does.
So more muscle means a higher resting metabolism.
Exactly. You burn more calories just sitting around. Plus, that kind of intense exercise can trigger hormone changes that also help with fat loss. So it's quite time efficient for improving body composition.
That's good news for busy people. Feeling like you don't have hours for the gym shouldn't stop you.
Absolutely not. Incorporating those small, consistent changes, maybe adding some shorter, more intense workouts, it really can add up.
So what are the practical takeaways for someone who is busy but wants to achieve, say, fat loss?
Focus on sustainability. Brief, intense workouts if you can fit them in. Increase your incidental activity, taking stairs, walking more during the day. Little things. Yeah. And make small, consistent tweaks to your diet. Maybe portion control, focusing on nutrient-dense whole foods rather than processed stuff. It doesn't have to be radical to be effective over time.
Small steps, big results.
Got it.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive for today. We've covered quite a bit of ground.
We really have, from the sheer scale of food waste and its impact
to the unexpected nuances of healthy eating.
The whole complex world of coffee sustainability.
Those crucial decisions around retirement savings.
And finally, some practical tips on sustainable fat loss.
It's been a really interesting mix drawing on that consumers.app aggregation from May 26th and the consumers research analysis. We hope it's given you some useful takeaways.
Yeah, hopefully a clearer picture of some key things happening in the consumer world right now.
So as you were listening, we're curious, did any one topic really jump out at you? Maybe the idea that coffee farmers could make more selling dried cherries.
Or perhaps you're now thinking differently about that old 401k or the 4% rule.
It's always interesting to see what resonates.
Definitely. And maybe one final thought for you to chew on, building on all this. Given everything we've talked about today, food, health, coffee, money, habits, what's one small, everyday choice you make as a consumer that you suspect might have surprisingly deep ripple effect if lots of other people started doing it too?
That's a good one to ponder, something to think about on your own time. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive today.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
If you found this useful and want more conversations like this, please do like and subscribe to Consumers 360. We'd love to have you back.